about, I'm going to the underground tonight. I have to think about what I'm going to wear. And for me, I had to really think because I arrived at Newark, but my luggage did not. So, so we had to rush. The mail had to rush us to the mall to try to find something to put on for tonight, including shoes, because I had flip-flops on. So, so everything begins with a thought, and what are we going to do? So the Bible tells us that we should think about things that are lovely, that are just, that are good report. If there be any things, there's virtue in those, right? And so we realize that we can begin to control our thoughts. And why is that important? Because today, with all the violence, with the requirements in school, as those of us who are stressed, pay back student loans or whatever else that you're stressed out about, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of stress. There's some of us, like me, who be a little bit ADHD, and I go to one place, I start something like, oh, I didn't finish that project, and I go back over there, and I start that one, and go back to it. And so we have to learn to control our thoughts, and we can think about those things. And that's empowering, to know that we can control what we think. There's a scripture in the Bible in 2 Corinthians that says, you can bring your thoughts into captivity, into the obedience. Right? So whatever you're thinking about, we can change our thoughts, we can change our moods. That last song that we just heard, that Beyonce mix, right? It changed our moods because we started to think differently. We heard one of our favorite artists, or two of our favorite artists being combined, like, wow, okay. If we wanted to go into a more zen mood, so that we can meditate, we can change the tone of the music, right? So we can change our thoughts, and we're in control of our thoughts. And we want to share that with science and spirituality, where that agreement comes, because sometimes it's just so stressful going from day to day, going through life's ups and downs, going through COVID and the anxieties of isolation and whether we're going to ever find love and whether everything's going to be normal again. It could create anxiety. So we need to know that we can control our thoughts, and we see that in science, and we see that in the Bible. So what I do in my books, the first one, addresses things like our mind. So it's my brain, mind, soul, and spirit, the interface between science and scripture. And it talks about our minds and our thoughts. So we kind of joked, or Bill's joking, it's like, okay, if you're a genius, you can be arrogant, right? Or you're not necessarily humble. As I was going through grad school, I carry the distinction of being the first African American to earn a Ph.D. in genetics from the University of Connecticut. When you're the first going through that pipeline, there are stressors. Right? And so I did have, along the way, my dad died, had some other things. 9/11 happened while I was there too. Planes flew over Connecticut, hit New York. We were stressed, and I was away from my family here in New England, or there in New England, and they were in Louisiana and Texas. And so I encountered some mental health issues while I was there. And so this book was birthed maybe like 10 or 15 years after, because of the stigma that was at that time on mental health issues. And I'm like, how can I be a professor and a scientist if people think or know that I had a mental health issue, right? And so God led me to, I'm a faith believer. I grew up in a Christian household with my family, as I mentioned. And so God led me to write that book about what is the brain, what is the mind, what is the soul, what is our spirit? Are they the same? Are they different? How do they interact with one another? Do they reside? And how do they shape our personality? And so this book kind of leads us to that place, and it was cathartic for me to let me know that I am who God created me to be. And you can be your authentic self and be whole and healthy, right? And you are where you're supposed to be. Sometimes we get stressed out about, am I in the right place? Am I behind? Am I ahead? Whatever. So we began to look at what is our brain, our mind, our soul, and spirit, and what's the powers of our mind to do that. So the next one, this is the more recent one, which was still 2020, when I did that one right before COVID hit, and so I was releasing that one. It's called Evolution of Creation. And so two terms that seem like they should not go together because they're two different theories, right? Creation theory and the theory of evolution, or Big Bang. So I'll talk about those here. But in both books, I take biblical scriptures and pair it with scientific knowledge. So in this one, from everywhere from geophysics, astrophysics, want to read up on all of that stuff, to genetics. So how do we become different races, what we call race